I think it would be absolutely foolish for WWE to lose out on Drew McIntyre, and his whole contract situation is definitely confusing. So we're going to talk about those reports in just a little bit, but we got to kick things off with some Ring of Honor news. Nigel McGuinness is a former WWE NXT UK commentator. You might remember him in WWE. And honestly, I thought he was a hell of a commentator, and depending on when you watch this video, you may have already heard or seen Nigel McGuinness show up in Ring of Honor. Now, trust me, before WWE brought him into NXT UK as a commentator, he was actually known as a fantastic wrestler back in the day in Ring of Honor. And a lot of people were wondering what was going to happen after he was released, and we were just waiting and waiting and waiting until Tony Khan actually brought him in for Ring of Honor, Supercard of Honor during WrestleMania week. Now, the thing is, it still hasn't been 100% confirmed that Nigel McGuinness will be joining Ring of Honor or AEW in any capacity. However, for months, there were some rumors that maybe Nigel McGuinness could be somebody that Ring of Honor picks up. Another name that's also been brought up a couple times throughout social media is Chris Hero. We know Chris Hero is doing some booking in some independent events. And, well, while it hasn't been confirmed that he's in talks with AEW, a lot of fans are definitely asking for Chris Hero to also return. I think Chris Hero and Nigel McGuinness, especially because of their rich history with ROH, would be great. But ultimately, I do wonder why the hell WWE ever let go of Nigel McGuinness, and why not bring him back? Especially when you look at NXT right now. I mean, everybody's going to have their own preferences. I have nothing against Booker T, but I feel like, Vic Joseph and Nigel McGuinness could have been a really cool duo for NXT. That's just my opinion, but of course, WWE could have definitely utilized him, and if they wanted to, they could have utilized him for SmackDown or Raw as well. Nonetheless, guys, a lot of big things are happening in wrestling, and it was obviously a very big night. Trinity Star. It's going to take some time getting used to saying that, but if you guys don't know who that is, obviously by looking at this photo, you can tell it is Naomi. And I told you guys I didn't want to talk too much about Naomi, but now we're getting some massive updates on her potential future, because according to a couple reports that came before ROH Supercard of Honor, it looked like Trinity Fatu might be actually backstage at the event, but it was actually confirmed by Athena, formerly known as Ember Moon in the WWE, that Trinity Star was backstage. And that is her new name in the wrestling world, but she hasn't debuted technically with that name. So Trinity Fatu was in fact backstage at Ring of Honor Supercard of Honor. There are rumors that she could be headed to AEW or ROH, and Ember Moon, or should I say Athena, she did talk about how they're really good friends, they stay in contact, and she does want to wrestle at Supercard of Honor, or not Supercard, at ROH. She wants to wrestle, and then obviously, she has a list of people she wants to wrestle at ROH or AEW, excuse me. So now that Naomi is a free agent, Ember Moon, Athena, whatever you know her as, she's working both companies. That begs the question, should Naomi go to ROH? Should she go to AEW? I'm not one person that's going to sit here and try to convince you that she should be working for ROH, because of the fact that realistically, ROH doesn't have the visibility that AEW does. And I'm not trying to pocket watch Tony Khan, but ultimately, as a billionaire, I think he knows, obviously, if you're going to invest any sort of money in Naomi, you're going to bring her in to hopefully increase the productivity and the popularity of your women's division, which, keep in mind, Trinity does have a nice reach outside of pro wrestling. So if I'm Tony Khan, I would find that more beneficial for AEW than Ring of Honor. It's two different companies, two different styles. Tony Khan has also mentioned specifically that Ring of Honor is for the very, very hardcore audience, and he's trying to bring a little bit more awareness to that style, but using AEW, it just feels like Trinity would be a better fit for AEW, and that's that. I'm sure to get his money's worth, Tony Khan would probably use her in both situations, but also Athena is still the ROH Women's Champion, so maybe there is an opportunity there. But ultimately, I just think it makes way more sense for her to be on AEW, and that's it. I don't want to see talent going back and forth between both brands, but that seems to not change and probably won't change, and I just think that's a big mistake. But that's a whole different topic for a whole other video. We're going to keep the news coming. We're going to talk about Goldberg. Yes, I cannot believe this is a real thing. So it was asked about this Tony Khan was asked at the media scrum about Goldberg potentially coming to ROH because he's a free agent. Obviously, everything seems to be in a joking manner, but it appears that Tony Khan knows for a fact he ain't bringing in Goldberg for ROH. He shoots that down, but he does say that, Goldberg being on Dynamite on Wednesday nights would be interesting. And, I am someone who's talked about this a couple times, saying that perhaps it would be a good idea for Goldberg to actually be in AEW. I know a lot of people will hate that, and you might disagree with me, but I'm not sitting here trying to say the things that are going to make you happy as a fan. I'm trying to sit here and explain to you that as a businessman, you are going to try to bring in people that will actually, generate more profit. I understand that people love AEW for the high flying and the great moves and the Vikingos and Commander matches, and I understand that's something that you guys like. And I'm not saying there's no room for that, but if you're Tony Khan, if you're Vince McMahon, if you're Triple H, if you're Scott D'Amore, if you are running creatively, if you're running creative for a wrestling promotion, your job is to get people in seats, and your job is to grow a global audience. It is not easy, but the bigger the name you have, the better and easier it is to do so. At that point, it does come at a cost, but I'm going to assume Goldberg being on AEW could be recouped. And again, I don't like to pocket watch, but I think Tony Khan, he can afford it. And if he can afford Goldberg, and you can use Goldberg to put over a future star, I just don't really see how that could be an issue. I don't know why people try gatekeeping AEW, but people definitely try gatekeeping AEW. I want to see it grow. And I think you would be stupid to not bring in Goldberg. I understand there's a lot of people who would disagree with me, but specifically off business purposes, I can see there being a lot of benefits to it. And maybe I'm wrong, but ultimately at the end of the day, Tony Khan is not shooting it down. And yeah. Guys, our final story of today's video is Drew McIntyre. His contract situation is being talked about, and this is a very, very crazy report. PW Insider has reported per multiple sources that Drew McIntyre's WWE contract is not up imminently, but it is in his final year, and they noted that both sides aren't even close to agreeing to a new deal. Obviously, this is a massive deal, and it's very important that we talk about this now because it's WrestleMania weekend. Drew McIntyre is competing for a championship. If he loses, that could be a small sign that he's not re-signing with the company. Now, what is the reason for them to being far apart on agreeing a new deal? Is it because of financial reasons? Is it because of, creative reasons? Does Drew want to go to AEW? Does Drew want to go to New Japan? I mean, surely all of these other companies can afford Drew McIntyre. So that's the real question. It's not a for sure thing that Drew McIntyre is leaving AEW, leaving WWE, but I'm just saying the possibility of him ever walking and stepping foot into AEW is actually possible. And for those who might say that's a bad thing, just remember, this is why we wanted bigger and more successful wrestling companies. Because if there was no AEW, and yes, Impact and New Japan is great, but if there wasn't AEW, that is a very big blow to the industry for the talent who could be getting paid really big checks without being stuck to WWE and their crazy schedule. So it's not like this is completely out of the realm. I want to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching.